The entire class is taking a physical strength test, and to pass, everyone bought stimulants from the teacher. Everyone except our protagonist. He simply can't afford those expensive stimulants. When the test begins, the others can barely manage to do 30 pull-ups with the magic weight bracelets. They try their best, but that's their limit. When it's our protagonist's turn, the teacher decides to get back at him for not buying the stimulants and increases the weight of the magic bracelets several times over. But that doesn't stop him. He easily does 100 pull-ups, humiliating everyone else. They can't understand how this broke loser outdid them all. And this is how he obtained such strength. He used to be a bottom-tier guy, with a crushing debt. The last thing he did to try and fix his hopeless life was summon a demon that could make him rich and powerful. However, that's not really how deals with the devil work. He learns this the hard way when a lightning bolt strikes from the sky and ends his pathetic life on the spot. A few moments later, he wakes up with an unbearable headache because he still has an important project to finish. When he looks at his reflection, he's completely shocked by his own face. Looking up at the giant white tree in the sky, he wonders what the hell is going on. Just then, a mysterious being congratulates him for summoning it and grants him exactly 3 wishes. This makes him panic for a moment, and he finally realizes he's been sent to another world, just like in a manhwa. At first, he thinks he's the protagonist of an isekai story, and that the floating book granting 3 wishes is some kind of wish-granting golden finger. Thinking that 3 wishes aren't nearly enough, he gets a brilliant idea and boldly asks for 10 wishes as his first wish. Upon hearing this, the demonic book gets excited, quickly realizing that this isn't its original summoner. The demon takes on its true form, sensing that a new soul has entered the body of Joe. Our guy is confused and scared to death upon seeing the monster, which tells him it devoured the body's original soul and was meant to take it over. He quickly understands that he's been sent to the wrong world and tries to escape as fast as he can. However, the demon snaps its fingers and immediately sets his body on fire, as the consequences in this manhwa world are severe. Even thinking about breaking the contract would earn him eternal, hellish punishment. His screams echo through the streets, and the demon thinks it's time to end this foolishness, since the boy was just as pathetic as it thought. Just then, our protagonist, with his business mindset, gets an idea. He claims that it doesn't count as breaking the contract if the demon's punishment prevents him from fulfilling his end of the bargain. Upon hearing a mere human try to negotiate with it, the demon is intrigued. Joe smirks, saying it would have already taken his body by force if that were even possible. He confidently claims that this whole thing was just a test of his willpower, a common trope in many a manhwa, and that he has proven himself more than worthy. His bold declaration makes the demon laugh, and it declares that he's the first human to even think of striking a deal with the devil himself. Suddenly, he's given the chance to sign the contract, and the demon agrees to give him a new start if he manages to fulfill just one of his wishes. However, the damn bastard makes his first wish to get 1,000 more wishes. The demon mocks him, reminding him that he has no other choice but to accept, since he'd be practically dead otherwise. With no other alternative, Joe tells his new boss that the deal is done and signs the contract, putting his soul on the line. The next morning, he finally arrives at his apartment, running and looking like an addict who was mauled by dogs all night. His new boss ditched him right after the contract was completed, but he decides to put up with it, since in practice, he's now a slave. Upon entering the apartment, he notices the place is completely trashed and that no one is inside. Suddenly, he picks up a debt note signed in blood and wonders what the hell is wrong with his family. Just then, he hears a loud voice behind him and gets hit with a metal bat to the head. The rude intruder yells at him for ignoring their calls, but his partner tells him not to beat the kid to death. His friend warns him that the boy might be dangerous, since he's an oracle. Confused and furious, our hero, like many a manhwa protagonist, asks them who they are, and the blonde guy kindly replies with a brutal kick to the chest, asking where his useless old mother is. He then insults him for having a stupid mother who wears herself out trying to pay off her good-for-nothing son's debts. Just like him, he mocks that his mother doesn't realize that he'll always be trash and calls them both a waste of oxygen. Suddenly, Joe remembers a moment from his childhood when he told his mother he didn't want to be a loser anymore. He had a nightmare where his mother worked so much that she died from exhaustion and, deep down, he feared that could happen someday. When he asked what would happen if he didn't awaken as an oracle, a pivotal moment in this manhwa, his mother simply told little Joe to stop worrying. She assured him that even if the whole world came crashing down, she would always be there for him and told him to trust himself. Back in the present, Joe is filled with determination and throws a lightning-fast punch to the blonde guy's face, taking him completely by surprise. As the bastard goes flying, his partner hears a loud thud and yells at him to stop before he kills the kid, only to see the blonde guy's body fly past him. When the dust settles, his face is so mangled that not even plastic surgery could fix it. Seeing that, the other two stare at the sudden change in his aura and think he had some kind of real-time breakthrough. This is a common power-up in a hunter manhwa. Meanwhile, our boy gives them his coldest glare and tells the bastards to shut their filthy mouths. They decide they need to teach the E-rank brat a lesson, a classic manhwa trope, and the thug tells June it's time to knock some sense into him by breaking a leg or two. Joe realizes they're talking about his power and deduces they're probably a higher level than him. When Hun brings his metal pipe down from above, Joe sees it moving in slow motion and easily dodges. He then appears right behind the goon and gives him a light tap with his knee to the face. His savage kick sends the idiot flying. After that, his partner attacks from behind, wondering how a mere E-ranker in this manhwa can be so agile. The man thinks Joey can't see him, so he aims to break a few of his ribs. However, he ends up with his own ribcage shattered by a spinning kick, as he's tossed out like last night's trash. He can't believe what's happening. The man begs Joe for mercy, explaining he only came on Lino's orders to collect the loan money. Hearing that, Joe tells the loan shark to tell his boss that he'll get his money in due time, so he'd better chill out and get out of his life. The thugs tremble at his words and hurry out the front door. At that moment, Joe asks the demon if he's there, and Goldfinger is surprised that the rookie was able to sense his presence, just like in a supernatural manhwa. He replies that he could feel his power flowing strongly through his body, and the demon tells him he should be grateful for the help. Our excited boy flatters him by calling him boss, and says he doesn't need to fear anyone if he borrows his power. This irritates the demon, since a mere mortal shouldn't even dare to think about using a power that could easily kill him if it overwhelms him. He is surprised to hear that, and asks the boss how he can grant his wishes if he isn't strong enough. Goldfinger assures him he'll get stronger with rewards, a common system in this kind of manhwa, but warns him to forget about using his power for the time being. Our hero feels quite disappointed to hear that. However, Goldfinger thinks to himself that it's crazy how well he handled his power, and it makes him wonder if Joe is secretly his destined partner. After that, Joe asks the boss about his second wish and what he should do next, but the demon simply tells him to forget about it and do whatever he wants for now. Hearing that, he sighs, as there's a lot he has to learn about this new manhwa world, and it seems his new body won't be that useful. He picks up Joe's phone to get a better idea of what the boy's life was really like. First, he notices he doesn't have a single message or call from his family, but when he opens the text from his sister, what he sees leaves him completely speechless. She had written to him a while ago, asking him to come as fast as possible because their mother had fallen into a coma. Later, at the hospital, he bursts through the door full of suspense. Inside, he sees a girl who seems to be his sister, hunched over and deeply worried in front of her mother's bed, in a scene straight from a drama manhwa. It takes him a moment to realize the atmosphere is painfully awkward, which makes sense, since he had ignored her before. He walks over to her and looks at the woman in the bed who is supposed to be his mother. He can't believe how bad she looks compared to the image he has of her in his mind, and he wonders if it's all Joe's fault. With a guilty expression, he apologizes to his sister for being late and asks how their mother is doing, but she just smiles angrily, asking what pathetic excuse he's going to come up with this time. She repeats all the foolish excuses he used in the past about training and summoning demons like he's the protagonist of some fantasy manhwa. Suddenly, she explodes at him, unable to believe he didn't even come to see his mother, who fell into a coma because she worked herself to the bone to pay off his debts. He remains silent as she tells him their mother almost died because she ran out of money to pay the hospital bills. After covering her endless debt, and after completely venting, she tells him they've had enough and hands him a card with 6 months of her expenses, telling him she'll take care of their mother on her own. The confused Joe sweats and asks what that means, and his sister calmly replies that to her, he's dead. Later, outside, Goldfinger senses his dark emotions and asks him why the human girl's words hurt him so much. The demon assures him he wasn't the one who caused it, but he remembers that the sister of Joe reminded him of his own pathetic self, who once made the same mistake. That makes his boss laugh, who tells him not to let it delay their plan. Hearing this, Joe asks if getting stronger will solve all his problems, and the demon confirms that everything will disappear if he proves he has what it takes. With that, he becomes fully determined to begin his training arc, a classic trope in many a manhwa. Meanwhile, at a nightclub, the head of the debt collectors tells his secretary to get their team moving fast because their clients won't wait, but the secretary informs him that a student beat up 3 of his men. Hearing that, the mobster remembers that his subordinates tried to collect before the due date and ruined his reputation. His secretary says he'll give them their punishment, but also explains it's a serious problem since the student beat guys who were way above his level. That captures the boss's full attention, who quickly grabs the report with Joe's profile. He thinks the kid is much stronger than he looks, since no ability could allow a level 2 to defeat a level 3. In the end, he orders his secretary to keep an eye on the kid. The scene then shifts to our hero jogging in the morning, and his friendly neighbor offers him a good deal on supplements, but he tells the old man he'll be back later. Seeing him so full of energy, the man wonders if maybe he got a girlfriend or something. However, Joe has been busy getting used to his body and getting in shape while gathering information. Since being discharged, he's learned that people with abilities are called oracles, and that this manhwa world has him in debt, up to his eyeballs, because the supplements to get stronger cost an arm and a leg. Although he doesn't know his limit, he's been getting quite muscular with just a few days of training and drugs. While thinking about that, someone calls him, and when he answers the phone, the voice on the other end yells that he forgot to return just as his master had asked. Hearing this, our boy suddenly remembers that he completely stood them up. The next day at school, he learns that there are 6 ranks from A to E, and that you have to reach the highest level within your rank to advance to the next, which requires a monstrous effort due to the huge difference. The world of this manhwa is divided into 5 layers, where those of E rank and normal commoners like him are in the outermost zones, while those of D rank and above are in the inner layer. Realizing he's at the lowest level, he decides to get stronger as fast as possible to climb the ranks in this manhwa, so he can enter the middle layers. Suddenly, a Neanderthal, a typical manhwa bully, hits him from behind with a booger and laughs in his face. His friend jokes that our guy looks so weak they could probably give him a beating, a classic start for a manhwa underdog, even though he's also a level 1 oracle like them. Hearing that, our protagonist gets irritated that such monkeys still exist in this world. Just at that moment, the teacher arrives in class. Later, outside, he's stretching and thinks that his school life is going pretty well so far. Suddenly, someone calls him from behind. A few minutes later, the snotty kid is stunned to see our protagonist fighting the strongest guy in the class. His friend isn't surprised, since he's used to seeing him fight. The bully, a classic trope in any action manhwa, tells our hero that he's gotten too cocky just because he scored well on the written exams. He claims that an oracle's true value comes from their strength, and that his level 1 strength is trash. Hearing that, Joe reminds the bully that he's also level 1 trash, which makes the bully furious and throw a vicious hook. Joe effortlessly catches the fist with one hand and twists his wrist with the other, asking if he's done talking nonsense. The guy, full of rage, can't believe he's being overpowered and wonders if Joe also got taller than before. Next, Joe throws his own words back at him, that strength is everything, a line straight out of a power fantasy manhwa, and then politely asks for permission to smash his face in. As the guy sweats, thinking he's about to get beaten up, the coach suddenly appears and gets furious with Joe for causing trouble in his class. The coach, as irritated as ever, asks if he plans on getting into trouble right after coming back. Our boy puts on his most innocent face and claims they were just playing around. The bully yanks his hand away and tells him to let go. Seeing things calm down, the coach warns our hero one last time and orders everyone to line up for the test. Shortly after, the students gather by a pull-up bar while Coach Gigi starts giving his speech. He motivates them by talking about the upcoming tournament against other schools, promising that good results will not only bring glory to the institute but also open doors to the elite, a common goal in this kind of manhwa. At the end of his speech, he shamelessly starts promoting his miracle supplements like the con artist he is. The test begins with the bully doing 50 pull-ups in a row. Joe isn't impressed and comments that it looks more like a TikTok challenge than a serious test. At that moment, a voice calls out to him asking if he's okay. The class representative admits she was worried because he ignored her messages for days. She quickly tries to play it off by saying she was just curious, but Joe reassures her, telling her nothing happened. Changing the subject, she asks him why he refuses to buy the teacher's suspicious supplements, a subplot that feels straight out of a school-life manhwa. Joe bluntly replies that he's broke. She tries to warn him about the consequences of not buying them, but her name is called before she can finish. Wishing her luck, he sends her off. She manages to do only 25 pull-ups before failing, but the coach remembers that she bought 2 bottles and magically increases her score to 35. Suddenly, it dawns on Joe. That's the real reason all the students bought that expensive garbage, a classic realization moment in many a manhwa. Otherwise, they'd risk getting expelled. Finally, Joe steps up for his turn on the bar. The coach narrows his eyes, a classic sign of an upcoming confrontation in this manhwa. Knowing full well that our hero never bought a single bottle, a crooked smile forms on his face as he decides to use him as an example for not buying his fraudulent merchandise. Meanwhile, Joe observes the pull-up bar and the wristbands, noticing they look normal at first glance, but suspecting there's a trick behind them. As soon as he grabs the bar, his eyes widen in surprise His body suddenly feels heavier, and he quickly realizes that the crystals embedded in the wristbands are adding extra weight. Still, he refuses to give up, deducing that the crystals must have a weight limit and pushing himself to the max. He starts doing reps as if it's nothing, a classic power-up scene in any manhwa, as the other students watch in disbelief, stunned that the supposed weakling is outperforming them so easily. They lose their minds when Joe surpasses 100 reps, shouting that he must be at least a second level. When he finally lets go of the bar, a crowd surrounds him, bombarding him with non-stop questions. Meanwhile, the coach is frozen in place, wondering if the kid secretly doped himself with enhancers. Fear grips him as he realizes the students might no longer need his shady supplements. Just then, he smirks maliciously, plotting a wicked plan for our hero like a true manhwa villain. The scene shifts to the principal. He's furious on the phone about the cancellation of the second-rate events, arguing that the school is underfunded and barely surviving with third-rate students. The man on the other end of the line bluntly replies that the system is looking for elite oracles and that's why the money is going to the top-tier schools, slamming the phone down. The principal puts his hand to his face, frustrated as he realizes the school lacks the funds to produce even a single elite oracle. His gaze falls on a black crystal enclosed in a display case, a classic manhwa plot device, as he tries to devise a way to keep the school afloat. His thoughts are interrupted when Coach Jagia's voice sounds from outside the office. The coach walks in proudly and places a list of names on the desk that he claims will become elite oracles. The principal reviews the paper and immediately notices that everyone listed is barely first level, even though the coach presents them as prodigies. Then, in a move straight out of a manhwa, the coach says, "There is one student who is not fit to become an oracle," and the principal takes the bait, asking who it is. The manhwa shifts back to our hero, who is heading to the principal's office with the demon by his side. The cursed book asks him what he got this time, but Joe remains silent in front of the door. He recalls the principal's bad reputation, knowing this kind of meeting in a manhwa is never good news. Just as he's about to turn the doorknob, it bursts into flames in front of him, catching him completely by surprise. The demon lights up, excited, because the activated desire it mentioned earlier has finally manifested. It orders Joe to find the item quickly, but Joe, in true manhwa protagonist fashion, complains about the terrible timing. His thoughts are interrupted when the principal himself breaks the silence, telling him to stop wasting time and get in already. Upon entering, Joe politely asks why he has been summoned. The man glances at his school file and asks the student what he thinks it takes to become an oracle, without waiting for an answer. The director himself answers, "It all comes down to money," then tells him without hesitation to drop out now while he still can. The color drains from his face, and the director continues to explain that the cost of developing an oracle is too high, and insists that Joe is just a poor kid who can't survive here in the long run. In his mind, he figures it's better to cut losses with the weak students now, and is even willing to refund the tuition. Joe takes a few seconds to process the situation. Meanwhile, the demon's eye widens as it realizes the crystal is the object, and tells our hero to take it. Joe whispers to the cursed book to grab it himself, but the demon reminds him that it needs another to act. Joe becomes thoughtful, understanding that in this classic manhwa dilemma, he must enter the middle city zone, which means he can't afford to be expelled. He composes himself and remembers that not a single student at this academy has surpassed level E2, and that's precisely why they are considered so valuable. Then, in a classic manhwa move, our boy asks the demon if he can choose the reward for this mission. At that moment, the demon understands what Joe is planning, but before it can speak, Joe cuts it off and declares that he wants the power-stealing ability. Goldfinger erupts, yelling at him and reminding him how insane and dangerous that wish is, a classic manhwa conflict, but Joe stands firm. He argues that if he gets expelled, the demon's wish might never come true, and demands that it trust him. Reluctantly, Goldfinger gives in and admits that whatever happens from now on, it won't be its fault. A glowing panel appears in front of Joe, asking him if he desires the power-stealing ability. He accepts instantly, without hesitation. The director interrupts his thoughts by asking if he has any last words. Joe firmly replies that he wants the director to evaluate his level one more time and only then decide. The director shakes his head at the useless request, but extends his hand anyway. Upon making contact, he notices that Joe's strength is greater than the records suggest, though still not enough for him to stay. Closing his eyes, Joe realizes this is his last chance and desperately tries to absorb all the star energy he can. Then, in a scene straight out of a power-up manhwa, he begins to emit a pure aura, leaving the director completely shocked, and even the demon is left speechless, as it never imagined that the boy's energy would surpass the power it had lent him. The director stumbles back, stunned, trying to process what just happened. He realizes that Joe, in this amazing manhwa moment, just broke his limit and reached the 4th level. Gritting his teeth, the man regains his composure and calls out to our boy, telling him to participate in the upcoming school tournament. Joe blinks in surprise, trying to understand why the director's tone changed so sharply. When everything becomes clear, he deduces that the guy probably wants to use Joe to pull the school out of its slump to show off in front of the Department of Education. The director admits that to survive, he had planned to get rid of the useless students, and then apologizes for dragging Joe into this whole mess. As a reward, he grants him a full scholarship, plus 6 bottles of supplements every week. He makes it clear, our hero must represent the school in this exciting new manhwa arc, because the academy's entire future depends on him. Realizing how desperate the man is, Joe seizes the opportunity and asks if he can have the black crystal from the shelf. The principal explains that it's carved from a black star crystal brought by the previous principal and that it represents the school's faith. But then he sighs, saying that if the school collapses, its symbol will mean nothing, so he agrees to hand it over. Joe confidently replies, promising to give his all to win the tournament. The principal changes the subject and asks him how he got so strong. Joe plays it off coolly, saying he'd been hiding his true power all along, a classic manhwa protagonist move. The principal nearly chokes, thinking that hiding his level is a masterstroke, and swears not to tell anyone. Just then, a woman enters the office, and the principal orders her to escort Joe to the elite class. A short while later, she explains that the entire 2nd floor is reserved only for the elite. Changing the subject, she curiously asks what kind of relationship he has with the principal, but Joe plays dumb and doesn't spill a thing. At that moment, the coach arrives, bursting in at full speed, apologizing that he begged the principal to reconsider the decision, but it was no use. The female teacher interrupts him, clarifying that Joe isn't being expelled at all, but transferred to the elite class. She adds that the principal is now looking for him, which makes the color drain from the coach's face, a common reaction in this kind of manhwa. That same night, Joe returns to his tiny apartment and collapses onto his bed. He mutters to himself, wondering how on earth a poor kid like him could reach level 4 in such a short time, a feat worthy of a manhwa hero. The demon immediately chimes in, reminding him of the mission at hand, Goldfinger. It warns him that his power won't fool humans forever, and Joe admits he already figured as much. Still, he reasons that he has free supplements and avoided expulsion, so life isn't looking too bad for now. Looking at his phone, he realizes the real crisis is still his mountain of debt, and he needs a plan to make money fast, just like in a dungeon-crawling manhwa. The next day at school, he looks more depressed than ever, observing the dusty and dilapidated surroundings. He wonders what kind of dump he's just walked into. This whole setup feels like the start of a new manhwa arc. Suddenly, someone calls his name. A man waves at him from a distance, smiling broadly, and tells him to come over. They start chatting, and the man apologizes for not finding him sooner, as he's always busy with class duties. The guy introduces himself as Professor Jen, and Joe immediately asks him if he's really the only teacher there. Jen scratches his head, admitting the school isn't in its best shape, and he's the only one assigned to the advanced class. He adds that they use the innermost section for training, so the outer hallways just collect dust. Pushing the door open, the professor reassures Joe, telling him that the facilities are still top-notch. He even promises that he'll never be bored here. As our hero looks on in amazement, the inside is nothing like the outside. It's like a world-class gym, a classic reveal in this type of manhwa. His teacher explains that the students are doing self-training and offers to introduce them. Joe thinks the place looks like a 5-star fitness club, full of energetic students. Though he notices some of them are giving him side glances, a typical manhwa trope. The teacher then calls everyone to introduce the newcomer. Joe bows politely and greets him respectfully. But a red-haired boy in the back starts causing trouble. Crossing his arms with a mocking smile, he taunts Joe, telling him to drop the act and admit he used connections to get in. The teacher yells at him to behave and clarifies that Joe was transferred solely based on his skills. The redhead doesn't believe it, narrowing his eyes like a predator in a hunter manhwa that has found easy prey and challenges him to a fight out of nowhere. The students get excited instantly, thrilled to see a duel that feels straight out of an action manhwa, and start spreading rumors. A blonde student in the back asks what's happening, and a pink-haired girl explains that a fight is about to start. That piques the blonde's interest, and he quickly asks for more details about the so-called transfer student. Back to our hero, the teacher advises him to refuse the challenge, but Joe accepts without hesitation, calmly adding that he has no problem with the fight as long as no lethal force is used. Meanwhile, in the school office, the principal is about to explode. Demanding to know if the new kid is already stirring up fights, the teacher explains over the phone that Joe accepted Vinau's challenge. Back at the fight, Neither one backs down as they face off, generating an intense aura just like you'd see in a popular manhwa. The principal finds it strange, but assumes the boy just wants to gauge his current level, so he authorizes the duel to take place in the arena. Shortly after, the two students are standing apart from each other while the teacher goes over the rules. First, there can be no outside interference. Second, both must compete at the same star level. Venao doubts that Joe is also an E-rank oracle. The teacher concludes the instructions, firmly reminding them that hitting vital points is absolutely forbidden. The opponents begin to circle each other as the teacher reminds them that the use of lethal force is prohibited under any circumstances. He also tells them that whoever loses cannot retaliate afterward, regardless of the outcome. A clean hit to the face or a surrender will end the duel immediately. With a wave of his hand, the teacher starts the match, hoping it will end quickly. Venao charges straight for Joe's neck, but he doesn't even flinch. He catches his arm and throws him off balance. The redhead reacts and throws another punch, realizing this guy might actually be strong. Venao unleashes a barrage of relentless attacks, but Joe dodges each one with the calm precision of a seasoned manhwa protagonist. Frustrated, Venao changes tactics and attempts a kick, his leg spinning through the air as he launches his signature move, the wind hook. Joe manages to block it with his arm and the redhead smirks, thinking he's already won. But from that very same position, Joe surprises him with a quick kick aimed at his neck. Venao tries to recover, wondering how the hell this guy knows martial arts and barely manages to stay on his feet. Venao thinks that now the only thing that matters is protecting his face at all costs. But just as he turns, Joe touches his nose with a closed fist, smiling as he asks if that counts as a win. Venao is frozen in disbelief. The arena falls silent for a few seconds, until Master Han officially declares Joe the winner. No one can believe he lost, and everyone is shocked by the unexpected outcome, a classic twist in any good manhwa. They think our boy is too strong, though he himself feels the fight ended too quickly. Still, he managed to learn something. He then asks Venao if he has any complaints. Watching the fight, the coach can't believe it. Venao is an elite with professional training, but he lost to someone who was just promoted to the elite class. He concludes that Joe has an exceptional hidden talent, the kind you read about in a manhwa, and remembers that was the reason the principal had asked him to give him special treatment. Suddenly, the principal appears and congratulates Joe, telling him to follow him because he wants to discuss something important. The pink-haired girl is surprised to see this scene, while the yellow-haired boy says they definitely need someone like him on their strong team. The principal asks our boy if he likes the elite class, and he replies that, aside from the students being overly enthusiastic, it's nothing special. The principal tells him he'll get used to it because the strong always attract attention, a common trope in this type of manhwa. He also advises him to focus on his training and that the school will do everything possible to help him. Hearing this, our boy thinks the principal trusts him now, so he decides to ask if he knows any way for students to earn money quickly, but the principal tells him to keep focusing on training so that, in the long run, he can earn more money and that the school can also help him financially if his family is going through a tough time. Our boy tells him it's nothing like that and thinks he'll now have to find another way to do it. While training in the gym, he reminds himself to be careful because the school has very strict policies against student loans. He wonders where he can learn to earn some extra money. But suddenly, the yellow-haired boy appears in front of him and congratulates him on the fight. He then asks who he is, and our boy asks the same question back. Meanwhile, the girl tells Zen he's being rude and apologizes to our boy, explaining that he's a bit annoying sometimes. She introduces herself, saying her name is Zoe and the pain in her side is Zen. She tells him they are both his seniors and can help him if he's confused about anything. The annoying guy then says that from now on they'll be a team and that he's the leader, so he'll personally take good care of him. He then asks our boy about the combat technique he used against Venao, but our hero says he doesn't know anything about those techniques. The leader is surprised when our boy tells him the move he used was just a reflex. He comments that Venao will be furious when he finds out, and Zoe quickly says she'll explain it to him. She explains that combat techniques are special moves a person learns from scrolls or memory stones, a staple in any action manhwa, and the more mastery one has over them, the more powerful they become. There are many different types, and strong fighters combine these techniques into their fighting styles. Zen then tells him that Venao used a D-rank combat technique in the fight, known as the hook wind kick. Hearing that, our boy thinks that must be the reason why he couldn't block the kick properly, and that he'll have a better chance of winning if he can acquire a technique like that, just like a true manhwa protagonist. He asks if they are rare, and the leader explains that their rarity depends on the rank. The school teaches the basic ones, but powerful ones can only be learned under two conditions: buying them or having someone share them, and they are very expensive. In the current market, Even a basic rank technique can cost around 500,000. Showing off, they both tell him they have a combat technique and offer to demonstrate it for him. Joe thinks they must be very rich, like some supporting characters in a manhwa, because such a large amount means nothing to them. Suddenly, it occurs to him that he can ask them about different ways to make money quickly. He asks them if there's a quick way to make money, but clarifies that he doesn't want to do anything illegal like robbing a bank. Zen tells him his only option is the Blackwater district, but Zoe quickly tells him not to be ridiculous. Then he comments that he's heard anything can happen there, but the school forbids students from entering that district. After that, the leader asks our boy how much money he needs for the technique, and he replies, around 300,000. They both immediately check their accounts, but are completely broke. Meanwhile, our boy decides he'll check out the Blackwater district after class anyway, because he really needs the money. He now arrives at the district, using his maps, and he realizes it's very close to his home. No one would guess he's a student, since he's no longer wearing his uniform. He even asks a local boss what he thinks of the district, but gets no response at all. From what he's heard, the areas on the outskirts don't have strong fighters, and their power level, common in this type of manhwa, is equivalent to a level 4 oracle, so he can handle anyone with ease. If things get ugly, he's confident he can at least escape without any trouble. After taking a closer look, he thinks this area has definitely been abandoned, and wonders if this is really the so-called miracle zone, but he can still see faint tracks on the ground, leading him toward a hidden secret path. He finally arrives at the zone, known as the Miracle Zone. After carefully following the path, our boy sees the filthy surroundings and all the shady deals, a setting straight out of a gritty manhwa, going down. He figures no one talks about this place because there are no laws, and you can literally do anything to make a profit. Seeing all this, he feels a glimmer of hope. Just like a manhwa protagonist, he might actually earn enough money to pay off his debt. Suddenly, he asks the thugs following him how much longer they plan on tailing him. One of them compliments him on his sharp instincts, saying he was planning to attack when he was completely distracted, but now the situation has changed, and he plans to beat him up in front of everyone. He says he's seen plenty of guys like him before, rich kids who come to the Blackwater district in disguise, and then become their prey. Joe thinks the guy is an idiot because he's completely broke himself. The thug, a typical low-level villain in any manhwa, tells him that he's an oracle, so it'll be useless for him to try and escape. He orders him to comply and empty his pockets if he wants to live. Hearing this, our boy calls him rude, and, in a classic manhwa move, knocks the leader out with a single punch. The other two become enraged because their boss was knocked out, so they both rush at him, intending to stab him. Suddenly, wooden boxes fall on top of them, and a mysterious girl quickly grabs our boy's hand, telling him to follow her. They both flee the scene and reach a safe hideout. Joe thanks her for her help, although it's actually an annoyance, since he was planning to interrogate the guys after defeating them. The girl acts like she already knows him and asks what he's doing there, then she panics. Remembering that she needs to stay hidden, he asks if he actually knows her, but she changes the subject, saying she just read his name on the collar of his uniform, noticing the name tag. He immediately takes it off. He thinks it's a good thing the girl doesn't know him, because he never realized his name was written on his collar all this time. He thanks her for telling him. While she's just glad she didn't reveal her true identity, she advises him to hide his information well, a crucial survival skill in this kind of manhwa, because this area is very dangerous, and then tells him she'll get him out of there, but our boy refuses her offer, because he's there to make money. He decides to leave, since if she finds out he's a student, he'll be in big trouble. As Joe leaves, the girl thinks she definitely knows who he is, and wonders what a student is doing in the Miracle Zone. Upon touching him, she felt something strange, which leads her to believe he has already become an oracle, a key power-up in this manhwa's universe. Meanwhile, our boy buys a mask to cover his face and prevent his identity from being leaked. As he's thinking that he still hasn't found a way to make money, a stranger approaches him and says he's the local guide, and can answer all his questions. Hearing that, our boy becomes interested and asks him if he knows any place where he can make some quick cash. The guide is overjoyed because he thinks he's found a new participant, and proudly tells our boy to follow him. He takes Joe to a fighting arena, the kind of place you'd expect to see in an action manhwa, where he asks if it's an underground fight club. The guide tells him he's right, and that it's the most efficient way to get money quickly. He explains that on that day, the winner will receive the cash prize, along with a cut of the betting money. He adds that oracles also participate in these fights, making them high-risk, high-reward battles typical of a monster-fighting manhwa. As he watches the current fight, he's sure of one thing. He has a chance to win it all. The guide asks our boy if he wants to participate, because he can get him some betting chips. He replies that he's going to try and win the cash prize anyway. Following our boy, The mysterious girl also enters the fight club, a classic turn of events for any manhwa, and starts looking for him. Suddenly, she sees him standing inside the ring and wonders what he's doing there. The ugly guy acts arrogantly in front of Joe, boasting that he's an established composite fighter, but our boy knocks him out with a single punch. The crowd thinks this is boring, since all the combatants are being defeated with a single punch. Our boy thinks he should finish this as soon as possible, and also beats the next two opponents right away. Seeing these fights, the club's boss is completely confused, because he only let him fight since he looked weak. His assistant tells him that after watching all those fights, the other fighters have decided to give up, and the customers are demanding refunds because they think the matches are fixed. Immediately, the boss orders his subordinates to set up a special match, because he has no intention of letting him walk away with all the prize money. Meanwhile, Joe defeats his last opponent and asks if he can receive the prize money now. The announcer declares that the audience is thrilled with the fights, so they've prepared a special match. Our boy thinks they never had any intention of giving him the money. Meanwhile, the assistants bring in a cart with a monster tied to it. The announcer says the special match will be against the Mifflin, also known as the Spawn, and upon seeing it, Joe is genuinely shocked. Without wasting any time, the NPCs unstrap it from the cart, and the Spawn falls to the ground like a corpse. Immediately, everyone runs out of the ring and locks it. Joe stands there trying to figure out what's happening. Suddenly, the Spawn awakens from its slumber, revealing a truly terrifying gaze, like something from a horror manhwa. A fat man in the crowd tries to reassure his girlfriend, telling her he could easily beat the monster with a single punch, but in reality, he nearly wets himself in fear at the sight of the beast. The mysterious girl wonders how something like that can be here. She knows Joey can't face it alone, and that she could save him by using her abilities, but if she does, her identity will be exposed and her plans will be ruined. Meanwhile, our boy thinks it's a shame the boss isn't present for a moment like this, and that he'll have serious trouble defeating this monster. When he looks it in the eyes, he feels like he is the prey and the monster is the hunter. His sixth sense screams at him to get away, because this thing is extremely dangerous, a classic setup in this kind of manhwa. The Spawn lunges at him to deliver a lethal blow, but our boy uses his reflexes to dodge the attack. If he hadn't, he would have died instantly. After this, he decides he has to get serious if he wants to survive. The monster corners him, and seeing this, Joey decides he must end this manhwa battle as soon as possible. He gathers all his strength to raise his level and strikes the Spawn with such force that it's embedded in the ground. The monster lies there, and Joe thinks the fight is over, but it suddenly attacks again, and he barely manages to dodge. He's astonished that his strongest attack had no effect and quickly backs away, because he knows he can't beat it in close quarters combat. Running around the arena, our boy dodges the attacks and looks for a weapon, a smart move for any manhwa protagonist he can use to defeat the beast. He then breaks off one of the Spawn's claws and uses it as a dagger to quickly slice the monster's neck. The cut isn't deep enough to kill it, but now Joe can counterattack. He knows he's much stronger than the monster, so he'll be able to kill it if he can just get close one more time. With that thought, Joe lunges forward, but the monster releases a mysterious gas that turns out to be just steam. The Spawn uses this fog as a distraction and attacks our boy from different angles. Inside the fog, a classic manhwa trope, he can't see anything, and the Spawn uses this opportunity to strike him. Afraid that the monster will kill him if it gets a single chance, our boy knows he can't let that happen, because he will die if time runs out. He decides to use all his senses to locate it and finish it once and for all. He concentrates intensely and manages to pinpoint the monster's position, then grabs it by the hand and cuts it off with a clean slice. This is the opportunity our boy needed to land the final blow, and he goes straight for it, but unfortunately, in a classic manhwa cliffhanger. Time is running out and his heart starts to ache. Meanwhile, the monster takes advantage of that moment to disarm him and lunges with its tongue, intending to land a lethal blow. Still, our boy doesn't give up and decides to surpass his limits once more. Like a classic manhwa hero, he borrows strength and catches the monster by its tongue, then throws it through the air and grabs it by both jaws. Using all his strength, he rips it completely apart and finally kills it. Meanwhile, the officials watching through the cameras have no idea what they are seeing. The boss nervously asks if the new kid has finally fallen, but his face quickly turns pale. In the arena stands, the white-haired girl watches Joe, with wide eyes, wondering how he managed a feat worthy of a manhwa protagonist. Still holding the monster's head, he stares intently at the camera, and that death glare, a staple in any action manhwa, is enough to make the officials break out in a cold sweat. The boss panics, cursing that he spent a fortune to bring in that fighter, only for the kid to crush him like it was nothing. The announcer tries to regain his composure, congratulating Joe, and tells him to follow the staff to collect his reward. A while later, backstage, a briefcase full of money sits in front of him. The official explains that the total is about $500,000. Joe reaches out to take it, but the boss suddenly slams it shut. With a shady smile, he declares that the deal has changed. Joe either becomes a permanent fighter and gets the full amount, or leaves with only 1/4. Our boy narrows his eyes and demands he repeat that. The boss explodes, yelling that all the other contestants fled, but after that fight, and that his star warrior suffered a sudden loss of his head. Joe retorts that this wasn't the original deal, reminding him that the terms stated fighters weren't responsible if their opponent died in the ring, asking once more if that wasn't the agreed-upon condition. Joe's overwhelming manhwa aura alone is enough to drain the color from the man's face. With a murderous presence, he demands the full payment, or there will be consequences. Hearing that, the boss pulls out a gun to threaten him. But Joe doesn't even blink. In a single motion, a classic manhwa move, he disarms the weapon and breaks the thug's finger. Screaming in pain, the boss orders his men to fill the kid with lead. His henchmen immediately draw their weapons, ready to fire. Joe just sighs in annoyance, visibly more irritated by the second. Outside, the white-haired girl tenses up when she hears the gunshots. A moment later, a man is thrown through the window, flying like an empty can, and lands next to an unconscious bodyguard. The crowd wonders if they're filming a movie. However, the girl suspects that all this manhwa-level chaos is Joe's doing. Meanwhile, our hero plows through the bodyguards without a second thought, unfazed by the fact that they're armed. A bald thug raises his pistol to shoot, but Joe slams his head straight through the wall, breaking outside. He escapes with the money in hand, as the thugs from above shout orders to capture him. As he runs through the streets, he realizes he's reaching his limit, a common trope in any good manhwa, and his body begins to slow down. His injuries are also slowly draining his energy. Suddenly, a hand grabs his hoodie and pulls him into a narrow alley. The girl from before quickly covers his mouth as the thugs run past without noticing him. When the coast is clear, she tells him he's safe now, and Joe recognizes her face from before. She tells him to conserve his strength and says she knows a secret escape route, leading him towards a tunnel. She warns him that if he doesn't move now, the thugs will seal off the entire district and capture him. He tries to respond, but she cuts him off, telling him to get moving. With no other choice, he thanks her and heads into the tunnel. After he's gone, she taps her communicator. On the other end, a furious voice demands to know where she's been. She ignores it, telling her sister to shut up and put their grandfather on the line because she has something important to report. The scene shifts back to Joe, who barely manages to make it, staggering into his apartment before collapsing on the floor. Gasping for air, he clutches his chest, struggling to stay awake, but the moment his body burns its last spark of energy, our boy, like a hero in a tragic manhwa, finally falls unconscious. He sinks into a dream where his mother asks him for forgiveness for love. The truth is harsher, she only has a few years left to live. She confesses that all she ever wanted was to see him grow up, meet his children one day, and spend a little more time together. Our hero's mother apologizes again for not having the strength to stay by his side and tells him she loves him more than anything in this world. Tears stream down his face as the hero is torn from his dream and back to reality. His eyes snap open, but he composes himself and looks at the sunny sky through the window. As he sits up, he realizes he's still in his own apartment. He feels a sense of relief knowing he's still alive, even though it was that childhood nightmare that woke him. Then, a voice resonates in his head, asking if he has finally woken up. Caught by surprise, he asks the demon where it's been for the past few days, but the cursed book mutters an excuse about having unfinished business, then turns the question back on him, wanting to know what he did to end up unconscious for 2 days straight. Before Joe can answer, the demon figures it out. He infiltrated the underground arena, spent too much energy, and faced off against a monster straight out of a horror manhwa. Goldfinger erupts, yelling at him for doing something so reckless. Joe tries to play it down, but the demon insists, warning him that its power isn't enough to bring him back a second time. It stresses that he needs to value his life more, as this is his second chance and he can't waste it. That manages to make Joe smile, and he thanks the demon for watching his back. Goldfinger relaxes a bit, but admits that the monster he fought didn't seem to be from this world. This entire manhwa plot is getting stranger. That thought makes Joe remember the girl he met in that cursed place, though he pushes her from his mind, because what's important now is leveling up. In that moment, he remembers the reward from the other night, and snaps open the briefcase, revealing stacks of fresh bills. The demon scoffs at him for risking his life for money, but Joe replies that, at least for now, he won't have to worry about his debts until after the tournament. Looking at his wounds, he says he needs to heal up before going back to class. Rubbing his head, he complains that he still has to stop by the hospital. the bank and classes, all in the same day. At the hospital, the doctor checks him and says the wound will heal quickly as long as he keeps it clean, noting his recovery speed. The doctor asks if he's an oracle, to which Joe says yes. Immediately, the doctor's tone changes and tries to sell him a membership plan. Joe instantly rejects it, asking only for the normal medicine. Relieved to know the monster's tongue wasn't poisonous, he watches the doctor hand him an ointment, but as soon as he takes the bottle, he freezes. Staring at it in disbelief, he asks the doctor why the bottle is glowing. But the man just gives him a weird look, insisting it's a common container. Joe doesn't believe it for a second, clearly seeing the glow in his hand. The doctor tries to sell him the plan again, saying counseling sessions would help with his stress-induced hallucinations. But Joe ignores him. In the hallway, Joe notices a strange flow of energy everywhere and holds out his hand, seeing it glow more intensely and realizing it must be related to stellar energy. Remembering the underground fight, he suspects that the battle, straight out of a manhwa, awakened something within him. He smiles, thinking that if he can sense stellar energy, he'll be able to absorb it much more efficiently. Just then, a man walks by, radiating a bright green aura, and Joe forces himself to act normal. When the man walks away, Joe watches him again and breaks into a cold sweat. That man's stellar energy is on another level, a classic trope in many a manhwa. The green-haired stranger stops, sensing something, and wonders if he was just scanned, but he lets it go. On his communicator, a voice bombards him, demanding that he immediately track the alien star. The man tells them to calm down, as he plans to stay in the country for a while. The voice replies, reminding him that the chief's prophecy marked the alien star as a boss-level threat, a common setup in this kind of manhwa, one that requires constant surveillance. Sliding on his sunglasses, the green-haired man smirks disdainfully and says the chief worries too much. He declares that if the alien star is truly his enemy, he will crush it without hesitation. The next day at school, the principal starts scolding our boy for skipping both his classes and his calls. He apologizes and says he was caught up in some personal matters. The principal softens his tone, showing more concern than anger, but asks if all of this has to do with the tournament. The principal shakes his head and explains that he has full confidence in him for the tournament. Instead, he asks if the school can help him if he's really in trouble. He reminds him that the top priority of the school is to support elite oracles. Joe smiles and tells him not to worry, promising to give his all in the tournament like a true manhwa protagonist, which finally puts the principal at ease. A little later, Zen and Zoe run up to catch him, asking what happened. Zen remembers that our boy had mentioned a combat technique before and starts digging through his pockets. Pulling out a credit card, he explains they managed to gather $300,000 for him, which he can pay back later. Hearing that, Joe freezes, shocked to realize how seriously the two of them had taken his words. He thanks them, but admits he's changed his mind about getting that technique. Just then, in a dramatic entrance worthy of a manhwa, Venato shows up, looking unusually shy, and offers $50,000 as an apology for his previous behavior. Our hero thanks him for the gesture. As Zoe begins to question the redhead, asking if he has any hidden intentions, Venato admits that he just wanted to make up for it, for calling Joe a fraud and now hopes they can be friends. Zoe leans over to Joe and whispers if they should let him join, and he shrugs, saying he doesn't mind. Zoe then turns to Venato and asks if he's okay with being the fourth member, to which he replies that the position doesn't matter to him. Zen immediately tries to boss him around, telling him to get him a bottle of water, which sparks a heated argument between the two. Joe simply smiles, realizing he has found good friends. The scene fast-forwards to him running on a treadmill, recalling that oracles absorb more energy during physical training. However, the absorption rate proves to be painfully slow, even with the training equipment. Much of the energy leaks away. Joe deduces that this must be why so many people never get past level 1, and tells himself he needs a better, faster method, a common struggle in the world of manhwa. Zen chimes in and suggests a sparring match, claiming it works much better than boring solo training. Suddenly, it occurs to our hero that Zen might be right, since he awakened his new ability during a fight. With that idea, he orders Zen to gather everyone. Moments later, Zen and Zhu launch a combined attack on him. Joe repels them, satisfied with the results, before telling them to rest. He points out that they've been training for over an hour now. As Zen and Zhu pant, Zhu admits she thought he was joking when he mentioned a one-on-two match, and Zhu adds that this training method, a classic manhwa trope, is incredibly effective. He then looks at Venato and tells him it's his turn now. The redhead grins, more than ready to jump in. Watching the group, Joe concludes that his theory is correct, as everyone's absorption rate is skyrocketing, and they will level up faster than ever. As for him, with a naturally high absorption rate worthy of a manhwa protagonist, he can push the test even further. In this world, supplements are diluted to keep them safe, but even so, people with low absorption barely benefit from them. In contrast, the power borrowing ability is 100 times more concentrated than any supplement, and if he absorbed it recklessly, his body would literally explode. But if he could control the flow and absorb it slowly, leveling up at an insane speed, a dream for any manhwa reader might be possible. With that gamble in mind, Joe activates the ability, immediately releasing strong waves of aura. The raw force of the energy takes him by surprise, but it makes sense, since the ability allows him to jump 2 levels in a single go, an overpowered skill even for a manhwa. Tensing his body, he forces the energy into a thin, controlled stream and begins to absorb it. His body seizes up under the pressure, every muscle screaming from the overwhelming strain. Focusing all his willpower, Joe notices how quickly the energy fills him, faster than anything he has ever felt before. Then he panics. His body feels like it's about to burst. Seeing no other option, he aims his hand upward and releases the excess, the energy erupting in waves, forcing his friends to shield themselves from the crushing power. They can't believe the insane power they are witnessing, a spectacle worthy of a hit manhwa, muttering in amazement at how Joe suddenly became so powerful, and that's when Goldfinger appears. Drawn by the disturbance, the demon freezes upon seeing the scene before him. Joe, drenched in sweat, calmly tells him that he managed to absorb the power, a feat worthy of any manhwa protagonist. If Joe will really be his long-awaited partner of destiny. He asks the boss if he said something, but the boss changes the subject, saying he's just happy the kid isn't dead. After hearing all the commotion, the coach comes running and asks what happened, and Zhu tells him it was Joe who released all that energy, a scene straight out of a battle manhwa, and immediately orders his assistants to bring the measuring device. After measuring our hero's power, they discover that he has already become a level 3 oracle. At first, the coach can't believe his eyes, but then he runs to the principal's office to tell him, since he's the first level 3 oracle the school has had in a long time, a truly classic manhwa moment. Meanwhile, Zhu asks how he can level up so fast and asks him to teach her his method. He replies that it's thanks to all the training he's been doing and decides that next time he'll do it in private to avoid causing unnecessary trouble. Hearing this, the three of them get excited and increase the intensity of their practice. On the other hand, Joe asks the boss why he didn't get angry with him this time. The boss says he's gotten used to it by now. Goldfinger tells him he can use all his powers if he wants to level up fast, because he needs Joe to get stronger, a common theme in this kind of manhwa. But Joe assures the demon there's nothing to worry about, and once he gets used to his new strength, he'll level up again just like that. The boss hears this and falls completely silent. Time passes quickly and the competition approaches, and our hero trains like a true manhwa protagonist, until the big day finally arrives. The whole team is full of energy as they enter the venue. Zhu gets emotional because she can't believe she's actually made it this far and says her mother would be proud. Zhu shows off a bit of knowledge, pointing out that this year has the most participants so far, setting the stage for an epic manhwa tournament. Banao chimes in and asks if he's ready for the level 4 category. The boy is annoyed that he didn't level up in time to join, but Joe just shrugs. The principal's words still echo in his head, do your best, and if things get too tough, give up. There's no shame in living to fight another day. Since the level 3 and level 4 arenas are separate, the three of them say their goodbyes, leaving Joe to prepare alone. Meanwhile, the principal and the coach enter the VIP area, looking around like kids in a candy store. The coach laughs, saying, "This is the kind of luxury we've been waiting for, all thanks to our school finally having a fighter in the level 4 category." Suddenly, Principal Wong appears and congratulates the principal for training 2 high-level students in just a few months, a plot point common in Academy manhwa. The principal responds humbly, saying it has nothing to do with him, that it's all due to the students' own efforts. He just helped them meet their needs. He also thanks Wong for his help, as he gave him all the key information about the competition. After the reform, the government announced grants for the winning schools. And because of these subsidies, the tournament's difficulty will also suddenly increase. An arrogant guy comments that some peasant has snuck into the VIP lounge and is causing all this commotion. The principal wants to talk back, but Bond stops him and tells him not to mess with them, because they are all principals of schools that have won this competition before. The principal says that's a thing of the past, and that no one really knows who will win this time. The white-haired guy tells him to enjoy this scene for the first and last time, so he remembers it clearly. The coach asks the principal if the students will be okay, since they're participating for the first time in such a high-level competition. Hulk then asks him what he thinks of his students. He replies that they are all talented and that Joe is a prodigy, the kind of main character you'd find in a hit manhwa. far more gifted than any genius. The principal tells him they just have to believe in the students. In the stands, the class cheers for Joe, but she is worried about him and very nervous, as it's her first time attending something like this. At first, she couldn't believe our boy was participating in the competition, but now she's there cheering for him. A week ago, at school, she thought that Joe had become the academy's rising star, and she wouldn't be able to see him anymore, because he would no longer associate with anyone from the lower classes. While she was thinking about that, she is about to fall to the ground, but our hero appears and catches her just in time, like a scene from a classic romance manhwa. He asks if she's okay, and she thanks him, then asks what he's doing there. Joe tells her he saw her, so he came over to say hello. She admits she thought he was an elite now, and would never talk to someone from the lower class again. He replies that friends are forever, and that no matter what happens, that can't change. Hearing that, she becomes happy, and thinks that Joe hasn't changed at all, and will undoubtedly win the tournament. The announcer says that the contestants are coming out onto the stage, and the class representative gets excited seeing our boy walk out with the others, a scene straight out of an action manhwa. The announcer welcomes everyone to this year's exchange and mentions that the event will be hosted by him and his partner, Lillian. Upon hearing that name, the crowd goes wild because she is one of the most famous idols in the country. The diva says she's there to work hard, and that today she is just another host, as the real stars are the contestants. Afterwards, the announcer explains the rules. From 12 academies, there are 48 contestants, 16 in the level 4 group and 32 in the level 3 group. He says the hall is only for the level 4 group, and that the rankings will be based on the scores of both groups, which will be converted into points later on. The contestants will face each other one-on-one, and the winner will advance to face the victor of another match, a classic tournament arc in this manhwa, until only one remains. The time limit is 30 minutes, and the match ends when one of the participants gives up or is unable to continue fighting. Lillian adds that this year's rules are much tougher, but there's nothing to worry about, and invites everyone to look at the top of the pillar. The audience gets excited seeing an S-rank celebrity sitting in the lounge, a power level that always hypes up a manhwa. To demonstrate his overwhelming power, the master makes the ground shake with just one finger. The announcer explains that this master has created a special barrier that protects the audience from any attacks, a crucial element for any manhwa tournament. Lost and can instantly repair the stage after each match. He also states that the contestants must use some gems that serve as identification and protect them in dangerous situations. And everyone murmurs that an S-rank is truly terrifying, and our boy thinks his power is almost equal to Goyo's. The guy seems so calm that he doesn't even get nervous. The idol says that the results will be displayed on the gems and declares that the tournament officially begins. The first match ends in just 17 minutes, and the winner is Sean. The headmaster says he can't believe an S-rank oracle is personally supervising the manhwa tournament, which means that this year's matches will be extremely difficult. Headmaster Wong comments that it's all due to the difference between level 4 and level 3. Since level 4 oracles have already completely mastered their combat techniques, the most prestigious schools are so rich that buying S-rank techniques is a routine matter for them. The only reason they always manage to win the tournament is because they use grant money to provide their contestants with the best potions and combat techniques. But this year, things are about to change completely. The fifth match is between Lan Qin and Li Yi. In it, Qin taunts her opponent by dodging all his attacks, and then uses a combat technique based on skills, and immobilizes him before delivering the final blow and winning the match. The crowd gets excited seeing this awesome manhwa battle, and many think she's using some kind of secret magic. Seeing that, the headmaster is surprised, because that type of ability can only be obtained by a higher-ranking oracle. Headmaster Wong feels proud and says she is a prodigy who managed to obtain that ability at a very young age. The other headmaster replies that it doesn't matter even if she has such an ability, but Bond provokes him by asking why he tried to recruit her, if that were true. The headmaster replies that it was just an early awakening and nothing more. In the sixth match, Wong doesn't even let his opponent attack and ends the match in just 5 seconds. Seeing that, the audience thinks the fiery oracle will probably win the tournament this year. Also, another headmaster believes that no one can compare to the student who is personally trained by Headmaster Lee just to show off in this manhwa. Lee says that barking dogs don't bite, but Bond tells him to wait and see. For his part, the headmaster thinks this battle is completely out of his league because his rank is so low that even qualifying for the tournament is already a miracle. He can be proud if Joe, our manhwa protagonist, wins at least one fight, or at least puts on a good show. After the 7th match, our hero is the next contestant and wonders what kind of fighter his opponent will be. Goldfinger tells him to borrow his power and end the match quickly, but he replies that if he does, he will attract too much attention and could get into serious trouble if the authorities in this manhwa investigate him. On his way to the ring, he runs into Chin. She tells him he's unlucky to be in the last match because his opponent is one of the strongest and his combat technique is so powerful that not even a ranked oracle can completely resist it. Our boy asks if it isn't dangerous to use such a powerful technique in low-rank matches. Shin explains that the gem can block a fatal attack, but he'll still take a lot of damage because that's the harsh reality of the competition. That said, he asks why she's helping him, and she replies that they are allies because they share the same goal, to defeat all the arrogant ones. Before leaving, she tells him that she was hoping he would help her, but since her opponent is so strong, it would be great if he could at least tire him out a bit. Hearing that, he starts to wonder if his opponent is really as powerful as she says. Finally, the last match of the first round is about to begin, and the crowd is shouting with excitement. When our boy enters the ring, he thinks it feels like a warm welcome, but in reality, those cheers are for the contestant Alex, who makes his entrance like an Avenger from a popular manhwa. The announcer says that no one expected the final match to include Alex. He became an oracle at 12 years old, and in just 4 years, he advanced to become a level 4 oracle. He has also received a national certificate, along with an invitation from a guild. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him the best fighter of this new era. Seeing him enter the ring, the audience goes wild and starts cheering for him. The class representative gets worried because no one is supporting our boy. A random spectator tells her that Alex has so many fans because he's strong and handsome, unlike his opponent who just looks like some random guy with a bad attitude. Hearing that, she replies that she supports Joey because he's a genuinely kind and gentle guy. After that, the two start arguing and everyone around them wonders what's going on. Everyone is excited to see how the prodigy will perform in this match, and if he can defeat the undefeated Leon Wang Academy, a classic manhwa setup. Will begin now, but Lillian interrupts him, asking if he forgot to introduce one of the fighters. He quickly apologizes and admits that with all the excitement, he forgot. After that, he introduces Joey as the star of the Lady Oracle Academy, and mentions that this is the first time his academy has participated in the competition. Other than that, he has nothing else noteworthy to say about him, which makes him wonder if the school should have at least bought him a technique before the tournament started. The audience starts bad-mouthing him, wondering how someone like him could possibly face a genius in this manhwa. The guy with the bandana starts laughing and loudly mocks the class representative. Meanwhile, the headmaster tells the director that it's a shame they have to face his academy's rising star in their first year, but that they shouldn't worry because it will all be over quickly. Wong tells Hook that everyone has to start from somewhere, so he just needs to ignore him and stay calm. Inside the ring, Alex tells him he feels bad for him, because in his first tournament he has to face him. But our bro tells him to pay close attention to the fight. Suddenly, he lunges toward our boy and arrives right next to him. He says he will start the match using only 10% of his total power, because even if he loses his first fight, at least he'll look a little decent. Joey thinks he's being falsely kind, a common trope in a villain's manhwa introduction, and gets irritated since he had already told him once to fight seriously. Just then the announcer declares that the genius can't contain his excitement and announces that the final battle of the first round officially begins. With that, Lei uses his speed to attack our boy, moving so fast that it looks like he used the shadow clone jutsu to create multiple copies of himself. Furthermore, they all attack at the exact same time. All the observing contestants think it will be extremely difficult to beat the genius, and the director thinks no one can defeat him. The genius, a common archetype in this type of manhwa, believes our boy isn't moving because he can't see him and thinks the only one who could give him trouble is Wong, thinking this is finally the end. He prepares to land the final blow, but as he gets closer, Joe asks if he isn't going to dodge before savagely punching him in the face. Seeing that, everyone is in shock, wondering how it could have happened. Our boy countered Lei's attack and instantly landed a punch. The genius can normally dodge any attack with his speed, but the big question now is whether he was just careless or if he actually failed to dodge. Everyone in the crowd starts to think our boy used some kind of trick, because in this manhwa, no one else has been able to hit the genius. Seeing that, he wonders if he broke some hidden rule about who can land the first blow. Wong tells the director that his student clearly has an impressive ability. Director Yu says he must be cheating, because no one is faster than Lei, but the other director replies that if they were cheating, the higher-ups would have already found out. Director Lee tells him to shut up, because he's setting a terrible example with his whining and complaining. He suggests they watch the match in silence, because it's not over yet. At that moment, Lei also shouts, insisting that it's not over. He admits he didn't take Joe seriously before and now vows to go all out. Electric bolts swirl around him as he charges another attack, a classic power-up scene in this kind of manhwa. Lei keeps summoning more and more lightning, but our boy remains calm, not even blinking. He finds it almost amusing that Lei has so much star energy concentrated within him. Suddenly, a flash of yellow lightning zips past Joe, catching him by surprise. The boy bounces off the barrier and starts ricocheting all over the arena like a hyperactive pinball, gaining speed with every impact in a stunning manhwa sequence. The announcer shouts that Lei is about to unleash his trump card, while Lillian keeps adding useless commentary. Lei smirks, and convinced that victory is already his, and lunges from above to deliver an overloaded kick. Our boy doesn't bother to dodge or defend. Instead, he throws a single, calm punch straight into Lei's face. The combined momentum of his attack sends Lei crashing uncontrollably across the arena floor, to which Joe yells that he should have attacked sooner, when he still had a chance at victory. The announcer then declares that Lei is down again. This time, the stone turns red, confirming that the genius cannot continue to fight, as the announcer celebrates Joe's victory. He briefly wonders if Lei will be okay, though the stone in this manhwa is designed to prevent any fatal damage. The crowd erupts in amazement at how quickly the match ended with Lei defeated. Chin enters for the second quarter-final match and secures the victory without breaking a sweat. Wong is up next, and he crushes his opponent with the same ease. The audience considers the beast's strength to be unstoppable. However, in this exciting manhwa, most eyes turn back to Joe, the boy with the messy hair. He shoots them a death glare that makes the entire section freeze in fear. In the fourth match, Ran from another Oracle school faces our boy and puts up a fierce fight. However, Joe dodges every attack with veteran-like precision and ends the match with a gentle tap on Ran's head, sending him to the floor in a classic manhwa display of power. Watching from above, the officials comment that our boy hasn't used any combat techniques yet, relying solely on pure energy control. One of them wonders if he might be hiding his true level or, even worse, using drugs, which would be a serious violation of the tournament rules. Back in the arena, the announcer starts hyping up the crowd for the semifinals, announcing Joe against another fighter named Liu. He freezes mid-sentence as officials in dark suits step onto the stage. The crowd murmurs in confusion, wondering who they are. One of the inspectors orders our hero to put on special equipment and release his star energy. The crowd realizes they are inspectors from the tournament and begins to mutter, suspecting they're accusing Joe of cheating, a common plot twist in this kind of manhwa. The boy starts to sweat, thinking he might have overdone it a bit, and makes a mental note to limit his power. The inspectors read the results, which indicate that the readings are stable and within the limits. They then announce to the public that the contestant is not cheating. They leave the stage, and the announcer shouts in disbelief that our hero is officially confirmed as level 4, and that the semi-final can begin. It takes the audience a moment to process this, and then erupts in euphoria upon realizing our hero is completely legit, a cheer-worthy moment in this manhwa. On the other side of the stage, Liu begins to tremble, and his face turns pale as he understands what this means. When the match begins, it ends instantly. Joe knocks him out with a single decisive blow, a one-shot victory straight out of a battle manhwa. The announcer nearly loses his voice, screaming into the microphone, while Lillian continues to add unnecessary commentary from the stands. Principal Wong turns to our principal, praising him for having trained such a monstrously strong student. The man accepts the compliments with a satisfied smile, and the other principals who were mocking him earlier now rush to congratulate him as well. He smiles politely, though all the attention makes him a bit uncomfortable. On the other side, Lee and Yu watch with clear annoyance. Irritated by the crowd of sudden flatterers, our principal allows himself a proud smirk, thinking that Joe really kept his promise and defended his school's honor. A great development for this manhwa's story. Back on the arena floor, the final semifinal is announced. Chin takes the stage with tense determination. Across from her, one steps forward, his eyes gleaming with the hunger of a predator that has just found its next prey. Chin's classmates roar words of encouragement from the stands, distracting the beast for a split second. She seizes the opening in his defense and lunges forward, charging her attack with a fluid cloud hand technique, a skill often seen in a wuxia-style manhwa. She strikes his chest hard. One doesn't even flinch, just looks slightly annoyed and then glares at her, his confidence unshaken. He begins to crumble as panic invades her, realizing the blow barely scratched him. Wong easily grabs her wrist and asks if she really thinks she has talent. Chin furiously tells him to get lost and drives her elbow into his face. He doesn't even blink and says he finds the whole situation hilarious. Desperation fuels her next move. She charges another attack and completely wraps him in her magic until he looks like a mummy, then uses her wind kick technique and strikes his wrapped body with relentless attacks. For a moment, she relaxes a bit, convinced that all her hits landed and must have caused some damage. That hope is instantly shattered when Wong suddenly appears behind her like a villain from a dark manhwa. Wondering how he could move so fast, but it's too late. He drives his fist into her, using his bloody wrath art, and sends her flying into the barrier, which cracks. As fragments fall, Chin kneels, barely able to breathe, while the announcer declares that Wong now has the upper hand, a common turning point in a tournament manhwa. Her companions look away with tears in their eyes, unable to bear watching her get mercilessly torn apart. Director Wong clenches his fists, silently praying for his star student to endure, like a true manhwa protagonist. Chin remains motionless as she looks at the red tag beside her, her voice trembling as she whispers that she can't afford to lose sight of the red tag. It pulls her into a memory at the academy, where she entered a room full of worried students. A crying girl told her that if the academy closed, she would have to drop out despite her dream of becoming an oracle. Chin hugged them tenderly, promising she wouldn't let that happen. At that moment, she swore she would win the tournament to get the funds to keep the academy open, a classic backstory in this kind of manhwa, though the black-haired girl didn't seem convinced. Chin insisted that she had never broken a promise. Then, the other girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a handmade red good luck charm. The gesture deeply moved Chin, who promised to fight with everything she had. Back in the present, Chin reaches for the charm, whispering once more that she made a promise. Wong dismisses it and callously steps on the good luck charm, mocking if that was all she was worth. He then brutally kicks her while keeping his hands in his pockets. Her crystal turns red and she falls unconscious, but Wong continues to taunt her. The announcer yells that the fight is over, but the beast raises his foot again, ready to crush her. The crowd panics, and the announcer pleads for someone to stop him in this brutal manhwa scene. The spectators watch in horror, a reaction you'd expect in any action manhwa, wondering what the monster plans to do. Director Wong's voice breaks as he begs for someone to save his student. An official demands to intervene, but the master remains calm, stating the situation is under control. Meanwhile, Wong brings his foot down with brutal force, creating a crater in the sand. However, his eyes widen as he realizes his target has vanished. Our hero now stands there, holding Chin in his arms. He saved her in the nick of time, a classic manhwa entrance. He calls out the beast, asking if this is the kind of abuse his school teaches. Wong spins around, fury overflowing in his eyes, and shouts Joe's name. The announcer exclaims in relief, declaring that our boy rescued Chin just in time. Director Wong rushes to the stage to hold his injured student, thanking the heavens for her survival. The crowd goes wild, unable to believe the beast would actually try to finish her off after she had already lost. Wong pays it no mind, and walks toward our hero, arrogantly declaring that he will eliminate anyone who dares to stand in his way. That arrogance finally ignites the fire in Joe. Our boy returns a death glare and dares him to try. The on-duty medics carry the girl away on a stretcher, while the announcer urges the staff to quickly prepare the arena for the next fight. In the stands, our hero's friends gather with the class representative. Sen asks how things are going, and she replies that Joe has already made it to the finals, though she admits something feels strange about his opponent. The director's friend warns Joe to be careful, shouting at him not to underestimate who he's about to face. Motivated, Joe assures him there's nothing to worry about. In the arena, Bong scoffs at our hero for thinking he has any chance, but Joe retorts that the guy talks too much. He smirks and asks if he's there to fight or just to keep barking. They both release their auras, which clash violently, turning the air into a storm of energy. The announcer officially declares that the manhwa combat has begun. Bong wastes no time and throws a sudden punch, but our hero withstands it as if it were nothing, his body not even budging. The beast smirks, saying he thought Joe would be stronger, but our boy instantly replies that he stole the words right out of his mouth, leaving the other guy drenched in sweat. Joe then leans forward and asks if that's really the level of someone who won the previous tournament. He then tries to grab him, but Bong barely manages to dodge. Bong activates his Bloody Fury skill, charging his fist as they both start trading blows at full speed, neither willing to give an inch. The announcer shouts in disbelief that he's never seen a level 4 fighter battle with such ferocity in any manhwa. Even Joe's classmate is stunned, realizing that our boy had been holding back in all their practice matches. Inside the arena, Joe lands a tremendous blow right on Bong's jaw. His master and the director watch with their eyes wide open, unable to believe their own student is this strong. Blood spurts from Bong's mouth, as he wonders how someone as powerful as him could be pushed back so far. That thought only fuels his rage further, and raises his power even more. Goldfinger then appears, pointing out that the guy is literally forcing star energy into his body to increase his strength. In the next instant, Bong vanishes in a flash, but Joe perfectly tracks his movements. He then readies an elbow strike, thinking that speed is useless, against his perception skill. Meanwhile, in the control room, an official nervously asks the master if they should check Bong's level, as it's rising abnormally fast. Calm as ever, He explains that it's just due to his family's bloody fury arts, which raise him by 1 level, so it's not cheating. He then admits the real curiosity is our boy, who is yet to show his full power in this manhwa. The master can't help but wonder just how far that boy can go. Back in the ring, the two combatants continue to trade lightning-fast blows like two madmen fighting over a French fry, as Joe's friends watch tensely. Zen yells that our hero is being pushed back, but the redhead quickly corrects him, saying that Joe is actually parrying the monster's blows with precision. In the arena, our hero stays focused, dodging and weaving between blows, looking for an opening. Finally, Joe counters with a devastating punch that forces the beast to block with all its might. The impact alone cracks the ground and makes Wong stumble back a bit. Our boy throws another heavy blow, and Wong says that Joe is the first fighter to push him this far. A shocking development in this manhwa tournament. Driven by pride and anger, he boosts his blood arts even further, screaming that he is still the strongest. Unfazed, our hero taunts him back, asking if that's all he's got. He then activates his borrowed power ability, and his level also begins to rise. The two titans face off again, their fists eager for more. Just then, Joe realizes he can now clearly read his opponent's attack pattern using his perception skill. He also notices that the beast's weak point is its heart. Without wasting any time, our boy throws a direct elbow to the guy's chest, making the beast's eyes go wide from the impact. The blow knocks the wind out of his lungs, but Joe isn't done. He immediately follows up with another attack, forcing Wong on the defensive. The beast blocks blow after blow, each one heavier than the last, as he thinks in disbelief that the speed and power of our hero keep increasing. He refuses to accept defeat and pushes his blood arts beyond their limit, a desperate move worthy of a manhwa finale. Then our boy declares that the fight is already decided and charges his fist with pure star energy. Wong yells for him to die and throws a massive punch of his own. Their fists collide, causing a massive explosion that sends shockwaves throughout the arena. The spectators raise their arms, shielding themselves from the violent blast. The principal watches, glued to the fight, frantically demanding to know what just happened. When the smoke clears, the announcer shouts that Wong is still standing, but in the next instant, the beast collapses and his crystal falls to the ground, now stained red. The only one left standing is none other than our boy. With that, the Li Tao school officially takes first place in the level 4 category, as well as the overall championship. Joe's friends begin to celebrate wildly, shouting that they finally won the tournament. A perfect ending for this manhwa chapter. His master and the principal also cheer for him, yelling that he has made their school proud. Tears stream down the principal's face, as he declares they will no longer have to beg for money, while his master keeps a poker face at his dramatic reaction. The same principals who were mocking them before now rush over to congratulate them, a classic trope you see in every underdog manhwa. Meanwhile, Wong's principal is seething with rage at the humiliation, and even last year's runner-up doesn't know what to do. To the principal's surprise, Li, his supposed ally, completely abandons him and leaves without a second glance. Master Bai also decides to take his leave, since the tournament is over and the official sincerely thanks him for his efforts. As he leaves, the eyes of an old man's eyes narrow suddenly upon seeing two unknown figures watching from the side. He immediately wonders if they're there to recruit Joe. The old man murmurs to the girl beside him that he never expected such an insignificant school to produce a monster straight out of a manhwa. He asks if she can bring our hero to their guild. The girl, Lin, admits they were childhood friends, but now Joe doesn't even recognize her. Still, she vows to use everything she has to recruit him. Inside the arena, the winning team stands proudly on stage. Cameras flash as the principal uses the victory to promote the Elicta school, milking it for all it's worth. Our hero smiles for the photos while thinking this feels more difficult than the fight itself. The next day, the principal calls him aside and admits he owes him a huge favor for securing the victory. True to his word, he hands Joe the black crystal, which makes the demon inside him extremely excited. Still, the principal warns him that soon the big Oracle Academies will get in touch with him and reminds him not to forget where he came from. This whole school arc is a classic manhwa setup. After our hero leaves the office and immediately bumps into his friends, who happily greet him with papers in their hands. Even though it's summer vacation, one throws an arm over his shoulder and explains that all the most prestigious academies sent them early admission letters and they all got in. Our boy congratulates them one by one, but they insist the real credit belongs to him. Then, N gets serious and bravely declares that together they'll become the best team of the future, leaving our hero a bit confused. The friendship themes in this manhwa are strong. Sue quickly clarifies that even though they'll attend different academies, they can still meet up and stick together. Joe just smirks, saying he's looking forward to it, since he'd be extremely bored otherwise. As they walk, He adds that he'll definitely need their help when he has to train to get stronger. Suddenly, another figure appears from around the corner, taking them all by surprise. The class representative looks at them with determination and asks if she can join their group because she wants to get stronger alongside them, adding another member to our Manhwa party. The class representative is amazed when she finally enters the elite classroom. She thanks our hero for his help, but he brushes it off, saying it was the principal's doing. Then, Leo also thanks the principal, who replies that he's happy to help. He adds that he plans to make the facilities available to everyone, with many more changes on the way. After winning the competition, the principal finally has the funds to do what he wants, all thanks to his students. He then praises everyone for their effort, while the group jokes that all these changes are happening right after they're leaving. Sue asks the class representative why she's training so hard when it's vacation and there are no tournaments. She shares her story, admitting she never thought she was good at anything, but was inspired by seeing everyone try so hard. It's a character development moment typical of a good manhwa. She continues, saying she wants to apply as a special cultural student, even though there's only 1 month left until the deadline, which makes the pink-haired girl cry. Sue then takes her hand and promises to help in any way she can. Joe is asked what he plans to do and if he's decided which school he'll go to. He reveals he hasn't received a letter yet, a cliffhanger ending for this manhwa chapter, as they receive theirs immediately from the 5 major academies. The principal clears his throat and calls our hero over, saying he has something to tell him. He hands him a red envelope and explains that it just recently arrived. He sighs in relief, saying he knew it was impossible for our boy to be left out. He reads the letter carefully and says aloud that it's from Dawn Academy. Everyone is shocked by the name, and the blonde guy shouts that it's the academy at the very top of the hierarchy, a classic setup in any good manhwa. Our boy asks him to explain, so he goes into narrator mode. He explains that there are 5 major academies that serve as symbols of authority and power. However, one stands above all others: Dawn Academy, which has the authority to recruit any student it desires. Joe then asks why there aren't 6 academies instead of 5. The principal replies that the true value of that academy cannot be measured and that they were all built for the purpose of combating the rift. He gets serious, saying that this information is strictly confidential, but he agrees to tell him anyway. You see, the rift is another dimension filled with incredibly powerful monsters, a common theme in this kind of manhwa. If they were to escape into the real world, all hell would break loose, which is why emissaries are sent to eradicate those creatures whenever portals appear. Although clearing a rift is extremely lucrative, like a quest in a dungeon manhwa, the risk is just too high. The man reveals that he himself was part of a rift-clearing squad. However, the death of just one key member was enough to throw the team into chaos, and it was eventually disbanded. Even though other academies also require students to clear rifts, Dawn is simply different, so he warns Joe to think carefully about his decision. The principal reassures him, saying that he still has the option to enter other academies and shouldn't risk his life. However, Joe has already made up his mind. He will join Dawn Academy. The big man smiles as if he already knew the answer and comments that he will definitely reach new heights. He throws an arm over his shoulder and says they'll all get stronger together, so the rift will be a piece of cake for them. The blonde guy then notices that the registration deadline is only 10 days away, when it's normally half a year, making our hero start to sweat. Joe tells them he has to prepare and won't be able to train the class representative, but the group reassures him, telling him they'll manage. Back at his apartment, he starts making a list of everything he needs. At that moment, the demonic book appears and floats the crystal in front of him. Reaching out, he touches it and absorbs something from within. The black crystal falls to the floor and shatters, nearly giving our hero a heart attack. Joe laments with a broken heart, complaining that he wanted to sell the crystal for money. Goldfinger tells him to get over it, as it's useless now, and asks him how the school visit went. Joe tells him he was accepted into Dawn Academy, the perfect place to earn money and get stronger. Although the catch is that he'll have to participate in rift raids. The demonic book tells him there's nothing to fear, as star energy originates from that very place, a fascinating piece of manhwa lore. A bit annoyed at being treated like a wish-granting source, Goldfinger agrees to help him anyway, since the rifts are related to his own goals. He tells Joe to brace himself and releases a dark energy towards him. Our hero absorbs the dark aura, and the system informs him that he has unlocked a new skill, just like a level up in a system manhwa. Divine Creation. The power completely remodels his body as he endures the pain and reaches level 6. When the process ends, Joe asks what just happened, and the system explains that he now has the power to create anything using his energy. Goldfinger reveals that this ability belonged to his old friend, Sato, and that he can literally create anything. The previous rewards don't compare to this one. Joe wonders if this is just a fancy way to level up, But Goldfinger scolds him, saying that levels aren't everything. The demon explains that levels only affect basic physical strength, and that the first awakening in Dank truly determines a person's future, which is why he gave Joe this ability to prevent him from awakening something completely useless. Then, Joe remembers that Chin also had a type of awakening in this manhwa, and realizes that special abilities far surpass simple combat techniques, a common theme in this kind of manhwa. He understands that entering a rift requires more than just brute force. Goldfinger tells him that the ability's power depends entirely on the user's mindset and urges him to try it as soon as possible. Joe notices that after the remodeling, he no longer feels the star energy being absorbed, and even the system panel now looks like a video game interface, a classic manhwa trope. Looking at his stats, he wonders if there's a shop, but to his disappointment, it's locked. Many other functions are also locked until he levels up. Then, he checks the progress screen, which offers him several side quests, but he doesn't have enough soul points to start them. Goldfinger asks him what's taking so long, and Joe explains that he'll need to enter a rift to level up, a classic manhwa progression method, but he's not strong enough yet. The demonic book starts complaining, saying that our manhwa hero is turning out to be quite useless. Just then, a new system panel appears in front of Joe, announcing that another of his wishes has just been fulfilled. His body begins to glow as he receives a new reward. Mage armor. The equipment is unique grade and can summon armor around his body to block attacks. Joe is delighted, as it not only increases his defense, but also his strength. Goldfinger gets a little emotional, saying he used all the power he had saved up, but he tells Joe to rely on himself from now on. The next day, the director asks him why he's leaving so early. Joe explains that even though the trip is only one day, he wants to arrive ahead of time. Then he hands him a note, asking him to give it to his sister at the hospital and to keep an eye on her. The man tells him he should do it himself, but Joe explains that the situation is complicated and he can't see her for now. Without insisting further, the director changes the subject and agrees to do it while everyone wishes him good luck on his journey. With that, Joe says his goodbyes and sets off for his destination. At the airport, the receptionist asks him why he wants a visa and a plane ticket to the city's middle area. Our guy replies that he was admitted to an academy, which the woman finds strange, since it's still summer vacation. She asks for proof, and he hands her the Dank Academy card. Her eyes widen as she realizes what it is, thinking she's never seen one in her entire career. Then, she looks at him in disbelief while he just looks confused. Joe asks if she also needs the admission letter, but the woman quickly apologizes and says the card is more than enough. He is surprised to learn that he doesn't even need a ticket, and she explains that someone of his status only needs one for the return flight. Sometime later, Joe leans back in his first-class seat, wondering if this is also one of Down's privileges. Looking out the window, he hopes Down Academy lives up to his expectations and enjoys the rest of the flight. Upon arriving at Down Academy, our boy feels it strange how quiet the atmosphere is. Unlike in most manhwa, he heads to the reception desk to check in, and when the receptionist finds out it's Joe, he gladly offers to take him personally, since someone is waiting for him. Joe is puzzled, not expecting to be important enough for someone to be waiting for him. The receptionist guides him to a stone monument, instructing him to place his card on it, despite his confusion. Joe does as he's told. In an instant, they are teleported directly to the academy grounds. The experience leaves him speechless. Shortly after, the receptionist takes him to the person who was waiting for him, a beautiful girl with long white hair named Linen, a classic character design in this kind of manhwa. She wonders if he remembers her, and Joe admits he does, saying he'd been waiting for a chance to thank her. To his surprise, it turns out she is his senpai. Once the receptionist leaves, Joe wonders why Linen seems so eager to see him. Before he can get closer, Kichon steps in front of him, blocking his path. Linen frowns and firmly orders him to be respectful to her guest. Linen invites him to talk, but Joe asks her to keep it brief. So, she makes him an offer straight out of a power fantasy manhwa. Join her guild, offering him 30 million as payment. Hearing the price, Joe's mind is blown. Even Kichon wonders if Linen has gone crazy and starts making comments disparagingly about him. Enraged, Linen glares at him sternly and asks since when he had the authority to make decisions. The boy, sweating, awkwardly tries to justify himself while wondering why she is defending him. Linen turns her attention back to Joe and informs him that this is the highest offer she can make. But Joe is torn, a classic dilemma in any growth manhwa, between accepting the proposal and the fact that his own abilities are barely E rank. Before he can answer, a voice announces that all new students must gather in the assembly hall. Linen tells him to think it over, considering how overwhelming that offer might be for him. Joe assures her he will consider it, and she accompanies him to the hall. In the assembly hall, a golden-haired boy, thinking himself superior, sits next to our protagonist to stand out in comparison. The boy's intentions toward Linen are not pure. He seeks to control her, planning to marry her to increase his family's influence. The orientation begins. Instructor Han Hon introduces himself and congratulates them on entering Dawnbreaker Academy, a key setting in this manhwa. He calls them geniuses, but quickly reminds them that, for now, they are just freshmen. He warns them they will soon face something completely new, the Fisher, a core concept in this manhwa's world. A Fisher is like a hunt, the oracles are the hunters, but fate decides when they can become the prey, a twist that makes this manhwa so compelling. Human weapons are useless there, only great strength matters. From the core and weapons made with Fisher materials are effective. Dawnbreaker Academy gathers the elite oracles, creating a solid line of defense against the Fishers. Han Ho directs us to the library for more information, and to the training hall for combat simulations. They can set their own schedules, but he makes one thing clear. They must adapt and grow stronger or become useless there. Seeing no fear in their eyes, he declares the first test a success. As a reward, each student receives a skill stone, a crystal that allows them to absorb a combat technique. This one contains Wise, a skill that automatically detects and reads the Fisher's language. The instructor announces 2 more assessments. The first is an entrance exam that requires eliminating a low-rank Fisher. The second is to reach dunk level and awaken their potential within half a year, a classic setup in this manhwa. Some students panic, while others relax, knowing the method to reach dunk. Sensing their unease, Han Ho reassures them, saying that supplements will help accelerate the process, then calls for the upperclassmen, and the hall falls silent as Linian steps forward, a dazzling figure with an undeniable presence, straight out of a manhwa. The instructor informs them that the seniors will assist the freshmen with their initial assessment and instructs them to choose their mentors. The students gape in awe at the sight of Linian, the heiress of the Sanoa Guild, a classic character in this kind of manhwa. One of them stands up, begging to be chosen, claiming she is the reason he enrolled in the academy. However, Linian turns him down, explaining that she only accepts magic-type apprentices, whereas he specializes in strength. Another boy, out of sheer devotion, decides to switch to magic just for her, but he is also rejected. One by one, Linian keeps turning down candidates, proving she has incredibly high standards. The instructor's patience begins to wear thin. He demands that she choose at least one freshman, warning that if she fails to do so, one will be assigned to her by default. Among the students, a golden-haired boy watches confidently, convinced he will be chosen, either by her choice or by chance, a win-win situation for him. Then, in a pivotal manhwa moment, Joel stands up and asks to be her apprentice. The room falls silent. No one expects her to accept, but when she says yes, everyone is left stunned, a perfect twist for this manhwa. Later, in the mission hall, Joel asks her why she chose him and why she offered such a high price for someone as inexperienced as he is. Linian simply tells him she has personal reasons that she will reveal after the exam. Then, she introduces the team assigned for his upcoming assessment. Suan, the supervisor, will only intervene in case of mortal danger, and any interference from her will result in failure. Yui, the healer, is in charge of recovery support, while Jolin handles ranged attacks. Leroy, the team leader, commands the formation and makes tactical decisions. Leroy sees our hero is unarmed, and wonders if he has awakened some kind of special talent, to which he replies no. Hearing this, Leroy is surprised and wonders how the academy accepted him, but he has no choice but to carry on. They decide to stay on high alert around him. Louis advises Joel to stay close so they can protect him, but he insists he has combat experience, a bold claim typical for a manhwa hero, leaving the healer somewhat exasperated by his overconfidence. Then, the hero's party is sent to the fissure in room 1, which can be opened with a fragment of the world tree. As soon as the fissure opens, our protagonist feels a dense aura, hoping to find the key to leveling up in this manhwa. They end up in a cave, and, almost immediately, a pack of shadow demon wolves detects their presence with its keen sense of smell. Leroy and Jolin charge into battle, doing their best to defeat them. The healer, Lee, rushes to heal them, unaware that a beast is approaching from behind.